Anybody there?
Okay. Aya, my Govanen, lesson 2 happening. Dave is on here, and we're also having the PDF notes. Yeah, we're having the PDF notes, and I need to be the one that scrolls down. So unfortunately, today I will not be able to be the one to read the comments. So I have to switch over to a different screen in order to read those. So I will get to your questions and everything. I want to, mouse problems in Dave land. I actually thought it would be me having the problem in Montana, and nope, it's something else. So yeah, hello from Montana. It's Calantirniel here and with Dave, and we're here for lesson 2. And I want to say hi to Miss Jamie and Tarya, because you guys are here, and I know that more of you will come. I wanted to say thank you to all of you who are patrons, because wow, I was so surprised. I keep finding new patrons in my email. This is great. So we have 20 patrons now, and most of you guys are teachers. So I have a feeling that we need to rework the patron levels so that you guys can participate better. Hi, Anna. This is our latest member. So Anna Elizabeth
welcome.
Has joined us today. And yes, my Govanen, welcome, right? So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the screen. Yes, it worked. Okay. And so, Dave, I'm going to let you go ahead, and I'll scroll down as you need me to scroll down.
All right.
So go ahead and begin.
Okay, this is lesson 2. If you remember where we left off, I know we're making the first of the songs together as a group. You know, each part have their own part, and that was part of the music. So we'll start. But now Iluvatar sat and hearkened, and for a great while it seemed good to him, for in the music there were no flaws. But as the theme progressed, it came into the heart of Melkor to interweave matters of his own imagining that were not in accord with the theme of Iluvatar, because he sought therein to increase the power and glory of the part assigned to himself. And there's a footnote at the very end of that, and the footnote is kind of JRT's a definition of evil. It says, the quote is, his, Melkor's attempt to dominate the structure of Ea, and of Arde in particular, and alter the designs of Viru, which governed all the operations of the Faithful Valar, had introduced evil, or a tendency to aberration from the design, into all the physical matter of Arde. It was for this reason, no doubt, that he had been totally successful with men, but only partially so with elves, who remained as a people, quote-unquote, unfallen. And that's from the History of Middle-earth, Volume 10. I thought that was an important definition there.
Yes, indeed. Very much so. Because, yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, speculation about, well, you know, maybe Melkor just wanted to do his own thing. Like, what's wrong with that? Yeah. It's like, no, it was not just about doing their own thing, because we can do our own thing and still be aligned with the vision of Iluvatar, exactly. Which is, to me, love, really. That's what it is.
Also, if you do that when you're making music, it just turns into noise, you know.
True that. So we'll go back here to footnote 1. Okay, there we go.
Okay, I'll go on.
Okay.
To Melkor, among the Ainur, had been given the greatest gifts of power and knowledge, and he had a share in all the gifts of his brethren. And there's a footnote there, but it's not really important for the reading right here, so I'll just go over it. He had often gone alone into the void places, seeking the imperishable flame, for the desire grew hot within him to bring into being things of his own. And it seemed to him that Iluvatar took no thought for the void, and he was impatient of its emptiness. Yet he found not the fire, for it is with Iluvatar. But being alone, he had begun to conceive thoughts of his own, unlike those of his brethren. And there's a footnote here that
I'll scroll down.
That would be footnote 3 or endnote 3, and it's a little bit expansion on, you know, Yet he found it not, for it dwelleth with Iluvatar, but that he knew not until afterward. That's an
Yeah.
important little addition there, because it otherwise you don't get the idea. Well, if he was a created being and came from Iluvatar's mind, and yet didn't understand that why didn't he understand that the flame wasn't with him as such? And that's an important that he only found that out until later. I think his idea was that it was some secret thing out there that only Iluvatar knew about, but if he could go and get it for himself, then everything would be fine. But that's not exactly how it works.
Yeah, well, and actually, I mean, we could even liken that to our own experience of our own spiritual awakening, looking within rather than like outside sources.
Yes,
for that.
Exactly.
So that we could totally see that, yes, Melkor obviously had a piece of the fire in him, okay, that we all have, actually.
Right.
All of Iluvatar's creations
Exactly.
have a piece of the flame imperishable in us. But for him to look outside of himself versus inside of himself was the flaw.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'll proceed.
Okay.
Some of these thoughts he now wove into his music, and straightway discord arose about him. And I have a footnote for that. Book of Lost Tales calls that harshness and discordancy. So it's a little bit of expansion.
Okay.
And many that sang nigh him grew despondent, and their thought disturbed, and the music faltered. But some began to attune their music to his, rather than to the thought which they had at first. Then the discord of Melkor spread ever wider, and the melodies which had been heard before foundered in a sea of turbulent sound. But Iluvatar sat and hearkened until it seemed to him that about his throne was a raging storm, as of dark waters that made war upon one another in an endless wrath that would not be assuaged. That means calm.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go on to the next?
Yeah. Okay.
Paragraph?
So let's look at footnote number 6, which I'm going to scroll down. And footnote number 6, it looks like this is pretty long. So, and footnote number 5 was in relation to the thoughts that came from the outer blackness, whither Iluvatar had not yet turned the light of his face, and because of his secret thoughts had no kinship with the beauty of Iluvatar's design, its harmonies were broken and destroyed. Oh, okay, that was a further explanation of the Melkor's quote desire to create, which was not a pure intention. It was an intention that was not aligned with. And again, if we think of the source and the Iluvatar, like when we're aligned with source, it's aligned with love. And I think that Melkor lacked love, not because it wasn't in him, but because he just wasn't looking at it. He was focused on everything else. And then the very thing that he was missing was the thing that he would have needed in order to create in the design, but he wanted his own design. He didn't want Iluvatar's design. He was not in alignment there. So it's kind of interesting to think about, that you can, I think about it from Iluvatar's point of view, and it's like, wow, I created all of this, right? And yet one of these creations says, I'm going to create my own thing, not like you. And, I'm going to do this. And it's like, okay, what do you do? So footnote number 6, I'll go ahead and read that. It says, this note from Home Volume 10, which, by the way, if you don't know what Home Volume 10 is, that's History of Middle Earth Volume 10, which is Morgoth's Ring, correct?
Yeah, that's
okay. Right. Makes Melkor's, quote, dark thoughts more explicit. Or he became so far advanced in lying that he lied even to himself and pretended that he could destroy them, meaning elves and men. and rid Arda of them altogether. Hence his endeavor always to break wills and subordinate them to or absorb them into his own will and being, therefore destroying their bodies. Or I'm sorry, before destroying their bodies. This was sheer nihilism, and negation is its one ultimate object. Morgoth would no doubt, if he had been victorious, had ultimately destroyed even his own creatures, such as orcs, when they served his sole purpose in using them, the destruction of elves and men. Melkor's final impotence and despair lay in this, that whereas the Valar, and in their own degree, elves and men, could still love Ardamard, that it is Arda with the Melkor ingredient, and could still heal this or that hurt, or produce from it its very marring, or I'm sorry, from its state as it was. Things beautiful and lovely. Melkor could do nothing with Arda, which was not from his own mind and not interwoven with the work and the thoughts of others. Even left alone, he could only have gone raging until all was leveled again into a formless chaos. Right. Okay. And even so, he would have been defeated because it would still have, quote, existed independent of his own mind and the world and potential. So, Sauron, this is by contrast, Sauron had never reached this stage of nihilistic madness. He did not object to the existence of the world so long as he could do with it what he liked, right?
Right.
So, yeah, Sauron had a completely different alignment, definitely.
Yeah, Sauron would be now like similar to a totalitarian dictator, whereas Melkor wanted to destroy everything except himself. I mean, if he could have, he would have completely obliterated everything. So that's a different worldview. It's a different inner psychology, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So I'm getting back to the paragraph. I'm trying to find it here. Okay, there's the number 6. Okay, here we are at then Ilúvatar arose.
Right. Sure.
Okay.
Okay. I'll go ahead. Then Ilúvatar arose, and the Ainur perceived that he smiled, and he lifted up his left hand, and a new theme began amid the storm, like and yet unlike to the former theme, and it gathered power and had a new beauty. But the discord of Melkor arose in uproar and contended with it. And again there was a war of sound more violent than before, until many of the Ainur were dismayed and sang no longer, and Melkor had the mastery. Then again Ilúvatar arose, and the Ainur perceived that his countenance was stern, and he lifted up his right hand, and behold, a third theme grew amid the confusion, and it was unlike the others. For it seemed at first soft and sweet, a mere rippling of gentle sounds and delicate melodies, but it could not be quenched, and it took to itself power and profundity. And it seemed at last that there were two musics progressing at one time before the seat of Ilúvatar, and they were utterly at variance. The one was deep and wide and beautiful, but slow and blended with an immeasurable sorrow, from which its beauty chiefly came. The other had now achieved a unity of its own, but it was loud and vain and endlessly repeated, and it had little harmony, rather a clamorous unison as of many trumpets braying upon a few notes. And it essayed to drown out the other music by the violence of its voice. But it seemed that its most triumphant notes were taken by the other and woven into its own solemn pattern. Let's see here. I have to go down a bit. In the midst of this strife, whereat the halls of Ilúvatar shook, and a tremor ran out into the silences yet unmoved. Okay, let's see. Okay. Ilúvatar rose a third time, and his face was terrible to behold. And then he raised up both his hands, and in one chord, deeper than the abyss, higher than the firmament, piercing as the light of the eye of Iluvatar, the music ceased. And that's the end of that
Yeah,
paragraph.
that's powerful.
Yeah.
I felt that. Yeah. So,
Do we want,
I mean,
do we
just
want to have
imagine
any?
all of this sound, like, I guess like it would be like, Lollapalooza or something going off, like all the bands at one time playing
Yeah.
everything, and then just utter silence, like waving a hand,
Right.
Wow. So, it's interesting also to me that from the point of Iluvatar to not have been proactive to quash Melkor right from the beginning. He allowed Melkor to do what Melkor was doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that that's important too, because in a way, it tells me that Melkor is part of the creation.
Just a second here. I'm having mouse problems. Let me see to get down.
Okay.
Here. Okay, there we are. Okay, should I go on with next paragraph?
We are at then Iluvatar spoke. Right. Okay, yes.
Okay. Then Iluvatar spoke, and he said, "Mighty are the Ainur, and mightiest among them is Melkor. But that he may know, and all the Ainur, that I am Iluvatar. Those things ye have sung, I will show them forth, that ye may see what ye have done. And thou, Melkor, shalt see that no theme may be played that hath not its uttermost source in me, nor can any alter the music in my despite. For he that attempteth this shall prove but mine instrument in devising of things more wonderful and beautiful, which he himself hath not imagined."
Yeah. And there it is. I am the creator, and I created you, Melkor.
And so you can try it, and it may seem for a while like you're going against the grain and doing whatever you want to do by yourself, but things are all interrelated. So
yes.
That when you try to destroy something, other things can go in and fill in the gap you made. Basically, is the idea.
Yeah. And even think about Melkor and the desire to do all of this stuff. Had it not been for Iluvatar making it, first off, he wouldn't exist. Secondly, he wouldn't have even had the desire to try to do all of this stuff.
Exactly.
And I think about that, like when, we go through teenage rebellion and we're like, man, we know everything. It's kind of like that, right? Like but it's still all interrelated to other things in the world. And we figure it out, hopefully one day we figure it out and like become individuals that contribute, but within the framework of what is there to contribute with, because everything is interconnected. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll go on.
Okay.
Then the Ainur were afraid, and they did not yet comprehend the words that were said to them. And Melkor was filled with shame, of which came secret anger. But Iluvatar rose in splendor, and he went forth from the fair regions that he had made for the Ainur, and the Ainur followed him. But when they were come to the void, Iluvatar said to them, "Behold your music." And he showed to them a vision, giving them sight where before they had been only hearing. And they saw a new world made visible before them, and it was globed amid the void, and it was sustained therein, but was not of it. And as they looked and wondered, this world began to unfold its history, and it seemed to them that it lived and grew. And when the Ainur had gazed for a while and were silent, Iluvatar said again, "Behold your music. This is your minstrelsy, and each of you shall find contained herein, amid the designs that I have set before you, all those things which it may seem that he himself hath devised or added. And thou, Melkor, will discover all the secret thoughts of thy mind, and will perceive that they are but a part of the whole and tributary to its glory."
Yeah. I mean, this is like some deep stuff. Very deep.
Okay.
Very deep.
Over here.
Yeah. Iluvatar in the creation feels like to me that I think that there was even a part of Iluvatar that knew that this discordance would happen, but needed to see it play out,
Right. Yeah.
that, is there, and then also to see if there is any redemption in it.
Right.
And I think that is even a whole bunch of, like the third age and the third song that we're on, and seeing like what kind of fruit can actually still happen from this whole, discordant tangent that happened. Exactly. Gee, I wonder what that would look like, and then having elves for their own part, but men especially, because men are more about like we think about tangents, like we think like we want to do our own thing, and I mean I think of that like as being a human, that's kind of a thing that we think about. Okay, but what we need to do as humans when we feel that creative desire is it aligned in love? In other words, in Iluvatar's overall vision, or is it aligned in something separate from that, which can be destroyed or destroy everything, and even destroy you?
Exactly.
And so, I guess that there's times for rebellion, and it makes sense. When something's wrong, we want to fix things or what have you. But to be rebellious for rebellious sake is no good. I mean, like, what does it do? It just makes destruction, and there's nothing that's really, I don't know, fruitful about that. There might be some arguments about that. There might be people that say, "Oh, destruction is fantastic," like, because we need to destroy things in order to create. But I'm talking about just destroying, not creating.
Exactly.
So just to be sure about that. Yeah.
More like rebel without a thought instead of rebel without a cause.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to switch back over briefly because I want to see who else is in the chat room. Okay. It looks like just Miss Jamie, Taria, and Anna Elizabeth is here. And oh, okay. Yeah, so nothing is nothing really going on other than greetings and chuckling at like a couple of things that we said.
Okay, that's fine.
So let's go ahead and okay. Okay, we ended at glory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Should I start with the next?
Okay, and then and many other things, Iluvatar. Okay. Yes. Right. Yes.
And many other things, Iluvatar spoke to the Ainur at that time, and because of the memory of his words and the knowledge that each has of the music that he himself made, the Ainur know much of what was and is to come, and few things are unseen by them. Yet some things there are that they cannot see, neither alone nor in taking counsel together. For to none but himself has Iluvatar revealed all that he has in store. And in every age there come forth things that are new and have no foretelling, for they do not proceed from the past. And so it was that as this vision of the world was played before them, the Ainur saw that it contained things which they had not thought. And they saw with amazement the coming of the children of Iluvatar, and the habitation that was prepared for them. And they perceived that they themselves, in the labor of their music, had been busy with the preparation of this dwelling, yet they knew not that it had any purpose beyond its own beauty. For the children of Iluvatar were conceived by him alone, and they came with a third theme, and were not in the theme which Iluvatar propounded at the beginning. And none of the Ainur had a part in their making. Therefore, when they beheld them, the more did they love them, being things other than themselves, strange and free, wherein they saw the mind of Iluvatar reflected anew, and learned a little more of his wisdom, which otherwise had been hidden even from the Ainur.
Yeah, it's really important to realize that we, meaning elves and men, like, like as far as the creation is concerned, is that it is purely from Iluvatar that elves and men come from. In other words, I don't think that people realize that that was a separate creation, and therefore the Ainur, who later became the Valar, okay, and the Maiar and other stewards of Arda and Ea, that while the Valar helped create the setting, i.e. Arda and Ea, they didn't create. Iluvatar was the only one that created elves and men, and did so without their knowing, so that they didn't have an idea of what that creation looked like. So that would be another story. I would
Exactly.
love to see how Iluvatar made the elves and men, like the way that that we're looking here at the creation of Ea and Arda. That to me would be pretty fascinating, because it apparently had to happen before the creating of the dwelling, because he had it ready to go.
Should I go on, or people want to discuss something? Okay.
Sure.
Now the children of Iluvatar are elves and men, the firstborn and the followers. And amid all the splendors of the world, its vast halls and spaces, and its wheeling fires, Iluvatar chose a place for their habitation in the deeps of time and in the midst of the innumerable stars. And this habitation might seem a little thing to those who consider only the majesty of the Ainur and not their terrible sharpness, as we should take the whole field of Arda for the foundation of a pillar, and so raise it until the cone of its summit were more bitter than a needle, or consider only the immeasurable vastness of the world, which still the Ainur are shaping, and not the minute precision to which they shape all things therein. But when the Ainur had beheld this habitation in a vision, and had seen the children of Iluvatar arise therein, then many of the most mighty among them bent all their thought and their desire towards that place. And of these Melkor was the chief, even as he was in the beginning the greatest of the Ainur who took part in the music. And he feigned, even to himself at first, that he desired to go thither and order all things for the good of the children of Iluvatar, controlling the turmoils of the heat and the cold that had come to pass through him. But he desired rather to subdue to his will both elves and men, envying the gifts which Iluvatar promised to endow them. And he wished himself to have himself subject to, wait a minute, I kind of lost my place. And he wished himself to have subjects and servants, and to be called Lord, and to be a master over other wills.
Yeah, so his intention was entirely different for wanting to be a part of the creation. It was entirely different. And then also, so yeah, he wants all of the servants and he wants all of this stuff. But as we know, with his energy, it was already destructive. So he would have eventually destroyed all of them anyway, and destroyed himself. Yeah. Yeah. Because he was just in a spiral.
Should I go on?
Yes.
Okay. But the other Ainur looked upon this habitation set within the vast spaces of the world, which the elves call Arda, the earth, and their hearts rejoiced in light, and their eyes, beholding many colors, were filled with gladness. But because of the roaring of the sea, they felt a great unquiet. And they observed the winds in the air, and the matters of which Arda was made, of iron and stone and silver and gold and many substances. But of all these, water they most greatly praised. And it is said by the Eldar that in water there lives yet the echo of the music of the Ainur, more than in any other substance else that is the earth, that is in the earth. And many of the children of Iluvatar hearken still unsated to the voices of the sea, and yet know not for what they listen.
Yeah, that's incredibly powerful. We think about the four elements: earth, air, fire, water, and how I would say that the most elven element is water for sure. And it's because of its tremendous cleansing properties, but that water holds memory. And that is something that is also noted for the Eldar, because there was other passages in the Legendarium that talks about, well, first we'll get to the footnote, oh, sons of men. Okay.
Well, yeah, when it was first written, it said son of men, and then I think my supposition is that when Tolkien looked at it, it says, well, I didn't include the elves, why not? And so rewrote it to say children of Iluvatar instead of sons of men. So
I see. Okay. I see. So what I was thinking was that, because I've talked about, like, that people will talk about, elven magic and elven healing and all of these types of things. I would say that if there were a elven healing element, that element would be water. And we think about that with the Valar themselves, and we show that Ulmo, okay, who is like, he has dominion over all the waters of Arda, even under the ground, right? So he's everywhere, and he actually uses the water for his own, like, that's the way he sees everything. Like, he can be everywhere and see everything through the water element. Okay. Nienna, she who cries, what does she use? Tears, which are water. It's salted water, though. I mean, there is a little bit of salt, so there's a little bit of earth element with that. But we look at like Este, who does a lot of healing through sleep, and what does she have? A lake, with an island, and Galadriel makes a vial with, so, for the starlight that helps Frodo get to, Mordor, to take the ring to get it destroyed. So I was just thinking about how important water is as an element. And also we see other, important elements also in Tolkien. For instance, I mean, we do see that fire, like, makes metal, and it definitely has a destructive element, but we see what's created from the fire also. We also see the earth element, like with, like the plant nature, the animal nature. We also see, like, with the hobbits with their gardening. I mean, there's other things that we see the earth nature also. But I would say water would be the most, like, original of the elven, like, if you will, elements. And so if we nurture our emotional beings ourselves, right, that can be some of the best elven type of healing that we can do for ourselves, because water is what helps us cleanse out, like, what is no longer needed, or what is, not good for us anymore, or like what, like things that we are trying to detox, if you will. Water is an excellent cleanser for that. But it needs more and more water, because as the water gets, holds the poisons or whatever it is that we're taking away, it's got to be moved into another place where the water can be cleaned and recycled and come back and heal and all of that type of thing. So I want to say that I think that water is an awesome element to work with. So for some of the new people that are, like, figuring out what is, like, your kind of magic, and what would the elves do? What would what were the elves thinking? And I would say, look into the water element with your work and see how it holds memory, and how you can use it for cleansing and renewal and nourishment, but also, the cleansing aspect. And then, of course, we have even the purification, the Nienna ritual that we have on Silvaweras, which is, coming in February. And for some of the members here, we have an archive of that in our videos, if you are interested. So there was no footnotes in that particular one, correct?
Right.
Okay, so we only have one more footnote. Okay.
Well, actually, there is at the very end. Let's see here.
Right.
Should be footnote 7. Let's see. But I think
That was the sons of men.
yeah, okay, yeah,
That was the sons of men. So let's.
Okay. In this next paragraph, there's a misprint, probably because these things were scanned in by someone in the late 1990s or early 2000s, and the OCR did a thing where it says, "Of the fabric of the earth had Aule thought, to whom Iluvatar had given skill and knowledge," but it kind of the skill is
mistransposed
as skin. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Okay. Whoops.
This isn't about the Pearl Jam song "Weatherman." That's very
different. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and read the paragraph that,
okay.
After footnote 7, now to water. Yeah.
Okay. Now to water had that Ainu whom the elves call Umo turned his thought. And of all, most deeply was he instructed by Ilvata in music. But of the airs and winds Manwe most had pondered, who is the noblest of the Ainur. Of the fabric of the earth had Aule thought, to whom Iluvata had given skill and knowledge scarce less than to Melkor. But the delight and pride in Aule is in the deed of making, and in the thing made, and neither in possession nor in his own mastery. Wherefore he gives and hoards not, and is free from care, passing ever on to some new work.
Yeah, and we talked about that with when he created the dwarves. It was more, I mean, I think I always call Aule the workaholic because he's always busy, that wants to do stuff, and it's like, let me make things. And so he made friends to help him work with everything, but he did not do that to, he wanted it in alignment with Iluvatar. He wanted Iluvatar's approval. And, and so I think that when Iluvatar saw the love that Aule had, that was why the dwarves were accepted into, like in a way, like they're kind of like auxiliary children of Iluvatar, because Iluvatar didn't make them through the separate creation. It was Aule that made them. But he did it with such love that it turned into be where like the dwarves could also be, one of the beings that, have. So now I will ask you this, Dave. This is something I don't know.
Okay.
When the dwarves die, do they go to Iluvatar the way humans do? I'm curious about that. I never even thought about that.
They don't really know. They believe that Aule takes care of them, and they go to a place that Aule set aside for them, but they don't know exactly.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. And it would seem that Aule would have some kind of say with that, seeing how he was their creator.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we have, stars and winds. There's the, okay. So we can go to, and Iluvatar spoke to Ulmo. Yeah.
Okay. And Iluvatar spoke to Ulmo and said, "Seest thou not how here in this little realm, in the deeps of time, Melkor hath made war upon thy province? He has bethought him of bitter cold immoderate, and yet hath not destroyed the beauty of thy fountains, nor of thy clear pools. Behold the snow and the cunning work of frost. Melkor hath devised heats and fire without restraint, and yet hath not dried up thy desire, nor utterly quelled the music of the sea. Behold rather the height and glory of the clouds, and the ever-changing mists, and listen to the fall of rain upon the earth. And in these clouds thou art drawn nearer to Manwe, thy friend, whom thou lovest."
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool kind of homage to Manwe, actually.
Yeah, I always thought that.
Wow.
And I'll go on to the next paragraph because it's also short, and then we got 2 of these, so then we can talk about the. Then Ulmo answered, "Truly, water is become now fairer than my heart imagined. Neither had my secret thought conceived a snowflake, nor in all my music was contained the falling of the rain. I will seek Manwe, that he and I may make melodies forever to thy delight." It says my delight, but the original is thy.
Okay.
And Manwe and Umo have from the beginning been allied, and in all things have served most faithfully the purpose of Iluvatar.
Wow. And even giving more homage to the element of water. And also, I remember when we were putting the calendar together, Dave, and remember how the month of water we aligned Ulmo with, which makes sense. And then the month of Sulime, we aligned Manwe. And that they're brothers. And we were thinking about how the water and the air, like kind of in a way, mirror each other. One has a heavier, element, so the gravity pushes it down, where air floats up to the top. But
exactly.
But like creatures, go through the water, they go through the air. Like there is like a mirrored, like, here's water and here's air. There's a lot of similarity between the two. Sound travels through air, travels through water. I was just thinking about, those as environments, where the earth, it's like a solid thing. Okay. Air and water, they go all over. They go to wherever, there's nothing that contains them unless it's the earth.
Exactly. Okay. In physics, they call that fluids. Whether one is a gas or one is water doesn't matter.
Yeah. In a way, air is a type of fluid and water is a type of fluid. So we have two fluids that are, one's on top of the other, kind of, as far as weight and all of those types of things. And the creatures are different. And all of the things that live in those places are different. But I could see where Manwe and Ulmo being brothers, how that resonates to be where they kind of both have their own dominions over air and water, and how similar those domains are.
Okay, should I go on or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We got, let's see here. We are.
We'll start with
okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to double check and make sure I was aligned properly. Okay.
I just didn't know if people, because I can't see the chat. I didn't know if people had questions or whatever.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go over there. Go ahead and start reading, and I'll go to the chat now.
But even as Ulmo spoke, and while the Ainur were yet gazing upon this vision, it was taken away and hidden from their sight. And it seemed to them that in that moment they perceived a new thing, darkness, which they had not known before except in thought. But they had become enamored of the beauty of the vision, and engrossed in the unfolding of the world which came there to being, and their minds were filled with it. For the history was incomplete, and the circles of time not full wrought when the vision was taken away. And some have said that the vision ceased in the fulfillment of the dominion of men, and the fading of the firstborn. Wherefore, though the music is over all, the Valar have not seen as with sight the later ages, or the ending of the world.
Yeah. Okay, in the chat, we do have a couple of comments. It looks like Miss Jamie says, would Ulmo be the water within us as well? And I was answering and said, yes, that would definitely be the case.
Yeah, water is
it's
water.
It's all water.
Yeah.
And wherever it is, yes, he has dominion and he can see. And she says, when I'm in water, I often feel the urge to sing. I'll look into working with the water element more. And I was saying that, yeah, Ulmo has dominion over water, but also has dominion over music in the legends. Yeah. So we think about like the music also, we think about the air element, but again, they're both fluids. And I don't know. Definitely, within the Legendarium, I think that Ulmo, if there is music resonance with people, I think that Ulmo is the one to go to. But I do think about, because we do listen to music in the air. It's transmitted through air.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We think about it. But the inspiration, I think, would probably come from a water place. because of the creativity.
That's always the idea that I had, but yeah.
Yeah. Great insight, Miss Jamie. And I think working with water is a great idea. And I was just typing, water and music are definitely related in the Legendarium. So I'll go ahead and go back to the screen so that I can.
We're now just about to start.
We are at the "but even as Ulmo spoke." Is that correct?
No, I already read that.
That one. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we're reading the last paragraph. Okay.
Yeah, the very last one.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason that it says then there was unrest among Yair, the reason there's unrest is because the vision was suddenly taken away. It's like, what happened? Yeah. Then there was unrest among Yair. But Iluvatar called to them and said, I know the desire of your minds, that what ye have seen shall verily be, not only in your thought, but even as ye yourselves are, and yet other. Therefore I say, Eya, let these things be. And I will send forth into the void the flame imperishable, and it shall be at the heart of the world, and the world shall be. And those of you that will may go down into it. And suddenly the Ainur saw afar off a light, as it were a cloud with a living heart of flame. And they knew that this was no vision only, but that Iluvatar had made a new thing. Eya, the world it is.
Yeah, well, all of that. And then it says, okay.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So we'll go down to footnote number 8, where it says Eya means the universe.
Yeah, and I put other things there for people who might be like me, more interested in science or whatever. I put some current articles in about the structure of the universe and so forth. So it's not required reading, just thoughts.
Okay. Well, and actually, when I first started reading the stories, I actually thought that Eya meant, the creation of the earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ardada. Mm-hmm. And later I realized that my expansion to that is actually like really in a way the solar system and, the stars and the skies and like it's more than just the earth.
Right.
It's the whole thing, that it's all of like, I guess what we know as of in 3D is really what Eya is.
Right. Yeah. The observable universe would be a good translation into modern terms.
Yes. Consciously observable. Right. Yes. I like that, because I do think that there's subtle layers of it and that are still real and part of Eya.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But as far as like what we call it and what it means and, what Iluvatar meant by Eya. Right. When he claimed it. And or she like the source, because I always think, yes, Iluvatar, all father, Eru, but it's the source of all.
A being like that sort of transcends gender, so.
Yes, it's like we don't have a word in English that works really well. So, so cool. Well, let's go back and see if there's any questions. And okay. Very interesting. Thank you. Water and I told her water and music. Okay. So there isn't any other questions. So does anybody out there watching live, if you have any, thoughts or, contemplations that you arrived at or that you were thinking about from reading the Ainulindalë today, go ahead and put it in the comments. And if you are not watching live, you can put it in the comments later and we will be notified of them and we'll answer, we'll definitely answer your questions as well as we can. Or we can do it in Facebook in the teachers group if you guys are in the teachers. Right. Some of you are new teachers. I forgot to mention that. So some of you either upgraded to a teacher or you joined as a teacher. So I need to make sure that you guys get into the teachers group on Facebook, because we definitely share, some material there that we, just in case, for instance, we're sharing it in Patreon also. Okay, but like for a one time, like, you know, hey, like I need that link or whatever, we also put it in Facebook for people, like, you know, or things like that. It's kind of just another communication system that we have. So yeah, I will contemplate more about like, and I mean, this actually today renewed my interest in working with water healing. I have had for a long time, I like to use flower essences as like a healing modality. And I think that you know, I'm getting awakened again to flower essences, the same way that like some other of you are like maybe getting reawakened with some music right now, or singing, or something else. Okay, Anna Elizabeth says, what are 3 themes about individually? I'm going to let you take that, Dave.
Well, we don't exactly have a definite knowledge about what the first 2 were like. Other than that, the Ainur were supposed to sing together. It was supposed to be harmonious, but there isn't a lot written about what the first 2 were about. And the shape of the Ainulindalë, its basic structure never changed, even from the first drafts to the final one that was published in the Silmarillion. So, you know, we're basically reading primary source material more or less with this. So
yeah, I often thought about like if I were to divide the 8, because of the 3 themes and the 3 songs, and then I think the 3 ages. I think about the first age being kind of the Valar, and then the lamps, right? And then the second age is being more of the elves, and then of course the trees. The 2 trees were in Valinor at that time. And that, I mean, there's a whole, like all the stories that go together about, you know, their creation and their unfortunate destruction. But then again, destroying the trees made the sun and the moon. So, you know, and then the third age seems to be the age for men, which that was what was said in the Lord of the Rings at the end.
Right, the fading of the elves. And
yeah, that it was the age of men, where I really feel that, so we may not have any, well, unless we have past life memories of being in the first or second age. I mean, like that, you know, that could be a thing. I'm not going to say that that doesn't exist. But in our incarnation now, as human, living in this age, at this time, with the age of men, okay, in this vibration, and it's changing again. I definitely feel that there is a shift, and maybe what's happening is that there is some kind of like climactic or crescendo or something happening within the music of the third song that we are in right now, that is helping to at some point wrap all of this up, because this is also talked about in the Legendarium, is that it talks about all of this being wrapped up and started anew again. And this time that the elves and the men would also sing along with the Ainur and the Valar and the Maiar and, you know, like all the other beings that, you know, like that we'd sing it anew.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I feel like that is why this is the time for the Elven path, because I feel that the humans that can sing Elven wisdom that they know from, like, you know, and really wisdom, you know, in general, okay, not only elves are wise, that's, you know, but we're learning from the Elven cosmology. That's why it's called the Elven path. It's not so that we can, you know, not be human and be Elven. That's not what it's about. It's really about that elves have tremendous amount of wisdom and experience because they're immortal. And so we can learn from that vicariously through studying the stories, and not just elven actions, like what would the elves do? Because there were some things that we definitely learned that were not, excellent for, for elves to do. Hashtag kinslaying, right?
Right.
So yeah, I just feel like the themes of these songs, like they had a different vibration. So it was like what it looked like, when it unfolded, when as soon as Ilúvatar said Ea and it began unfolding, that was the first age, i.e. the first song, and the time of the Valar. Okay. And then
exactly.
the time of elves was the second age. Okay. And now it's the time of men. So now that all of these things are being sang, and all of us are trying to also, I think even as humans, the ones that are, having love in their heart and accessing that energy of Ilúvatar, the all that is, the flame imperishable that we hold in us, when we act out of love and we create from a loving place in the, I would say glory of Ilúvatar, but I guess it's just for, it's a collective creation that in a way that we're making.
Right.
Like we have a piece of it, and only, I do really think that only we can make our piece. So there is an individual aspect to it.
Right.
But when we collect it all together, none of us are like, well, my creation is better than your creation, and so your creation has to go away. That's not what's happening. We can all create together and have it be extra awesome, also, as long as it's aligned in the vision of Ilúvatar.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Also, we have to remember with these two books, I call them books because that's what they were intended to be, each of these short chapters. Yeah. Both the Ainulindalë and the Valaquenta, which talks about basically the speciality of each Vala and what they, what their purpose is, what they're attracted to, that sort of thing. You have to remember that these are basically things that were told to the elves by the Valar because the elves didn't exist at that time. Only the Ainur existed. So it's kind of like listening to, well, in my case, my father, he was in World War II, probably maybe for some of you, your grandfather or great-grandfather. You weren't there, you get the stories, but it's not exactly the same thing as being there at the time. So sometimes some of the information that a person who was actually there might have known just isn't in the document. If you view it as a mytho-historical document rather than just quote-unquote fiction, you'll see that that's the case, great grandfather Fred was in the battle, but I wasn't. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, like let's think about at Turuhalme, which is the Elven Yule, and how because they're immortal, so their dead are not just their ancestors. Their dead are like warriors that were slain in battle, and so it's kind of like a combination of Samhain and Veterans Day, like
exactly.
Turuhalme, because they tell the stories of, and we already know that story is the way that things live on. And by the way, stories can be a creative process.
Precisely.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like people think there's people out there that say, oh, Lisa, I'm not creative, or, oh, Calantirniel, I'm not creative. I can't paint. I can't this, that, the other. Trust me, that is not the only way to create. I mean, it's like probably what you're talented at. And even if it's like making a court document or something, it still exists. Excuse me. It's still you put energy into that. When you cook a meal, even, that's a creation. Okay.
Exactly.
And it's best to be very mindful about what you cook and consume, because you then eat your own energy, so you want to be as mindful about that, not just about like picking ingredients and all of those types of things, but even your process of making. You want to be elevated and happy. And sometimes, because I cook, like all the time, and there's days that I'm like, oh, I'm not into this. You know what I mean? Like, I got to cook because I got to eat. Okay. The food can actually taste different when you cook out of just the necessity. Okay. It can taste different. So in times like that, so maybe what we can do is like, because some days we're going to have like days what we want to cook and it's like fun and elevated, and other days it's like, I just need to just get something in my stomach and go to bed or whatever. So maybe what we can do with that is do like make ahead, like meals that like convert leftovers into something else very easily, so that when you're like in a mood that you want to put things together really quick and not have to deal with it, that you still have, like a piece of your really good energy when you made that item. Okay. So, and I know that some of you are actually going to be like, it's unrelated to us, but Elven scholar Ainulindalë has a course, like he has a course, and I think he's sharing his free first class or something like that with raw vegan cooking. And I think that it's terrific to always like be really aware of your sources that you are like bringing the food from, so that you can nourish yourselves properly. And that is a creative process on its own. Let me just double check and make sure that, okay, there's nothing else. And probably because this isn't a public one. Remember how we were all over the map?
Yeah.
Because we had people that just popped in and never heard of us, just coming in. So, Dave, how many more lessons for the Ainulindale?
There should just be one more.
One more lesson. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go on to the Valaquinta. And then we were talking about possibly, because we've noticed that this is a topic that, well, for one, it needs to be done like as a general thing, just for a basic Elvish and or Tengwar, like learning about it. So like maybe you don't want to speak Elvish fluently, but you might want to be able to read it, like if you see it, or, know what it says, or, like have a greeting, or, we actually thought about a long time ago creating the rituals all in Quenya that we speak. It's a little harder than, I think that it could be done because it is a ritual and there are a lot of spiritual resonant words in Quenya. I think it could be done, but it's just something that we haven't done yet. And part of it is because we've been bringing more people up to speed. Speaking English can be hard enough to learn this stuff,
right? Let
alone Quenya. Okay. So that's one of the reasons it hasn't been a real draw, but I do think that like for, after we do the Ainulindale and the Valaquinta, Dave, do you have any other ideas about like the mandatory, like absolutely mandatory reading of the Silmarillion? Or should we go into like maybe Lost Tales, Unfinished Tales, Morgoth's Ring? Like, is that like kind of the next step after Valaquinta, or should we have some sections of the Silmarillion still that are in the curriculum for?
You mean
everybody should read the Silmarillion anyway?
Right. Yeah. Well, there are some concepts within some of the History of Middle Earth volumes that people, especially who identify with the elves, might want to know. Like, what does fading mean, for example? And that's detailed in the Lost Tales. I say we should go in. I should say we should go into it by category and interest of the people,
rather than the actual book. Okay.
Right.
That sounds like a good idea. Okay. So we'll go Valaquinta. So we have time. Okay. But we would like your input, being that you're our patrons, as far as like your learning journey, whether you would like to do the Elvish Quenya first and then like pick up some of the other legendarium pieces that we can fit in later. For instance, what Dave brought up, Lost Tales, etc. Okay. Or would you rather go for the Lost Tales and some of those like in the lore and then do the Elvish training afterward? And we don't have to have the answers today. This can come in, you can message me on Facebook. You can email me. You can send me a message in Patreon. You can even comment here. You can even comment in the video after the live is over. So, and it looks like we're at a little over an hour. And thank you to all who have come in person to be here with our live stream. And thank all of you who are seeing this in a replay. We still want to hear from you. And we hope that this was helpful and that you're enjoying the PDF downloads and that you're enjoying the class. And I think that we are going to be ready to sign off. And I hope all of you, by the way, had a really wonderful Isil Yavanie, which I did a ritual for that prior. And if you guys need the link for that to connect with Yavanna, you can still connect with Yavanna. I believe it is still the month of Yavanie, which is her month. So you can still do that. Thank you, Anna, Elizabeth. Oh, yay. So we have a thank you. And I think that we'll get going here pretty soon. So I'm pretty bushwhacked still from arriving in Montana and still getting my bearings up here. But I have to tell you that this is one of the most beautiful and magical places I have been in a long time. And I'm really happy to be here. This has been wonderful. Miss Jamie says, thank you and blessings to you, LAITA, she says. Yay, Miss Jamie. Awesome. I look forward to Miss Jamie. She did a very, very in-depth, really in-depth Isil Yavanie, where Yavanna like literally pulled her in and was like and wow. I have a feeling that Miss Jamie is also if it's Miss Jamie or it's Nadia, Lady Ravenhill, but I think it's Miss Jamie that Nessa appears in, and that is very interesting too, because again, I kind of see like more of those really kind of earthy, of the Valar kind of being together, like Vana, Yavanna, Nessa, like they have so much joy, but they're very grounded in the earth. It's not like really esoteric, like
exactly, yeah,
like Este and Vaire, the Weaver. They're very kind of in a way like it's just otherworldly. These particular Valar just really like they're very, very joy oriented and very accessible and that they vibrate with the earth and flowers and plants and that type of thing. So, okay, I guess we'll go ahead and sign off. I hope all of you have a wonderful month, and we'll see you at Enderi. That is the next one on the calendar, and I'm not really sure where I will be broadcasting from for that, but we'll play it by ear. So that was me. She said, yes, it was her. So Miss Jamie, I thought so, but I get you and Lady Ravenhill mixed up because you guys have a lot of similarities. I just want to tell you. So yeah, I mean, I may like introduce you guys to be friends, so that like you guys, because your guys are very similar, just really similar. So, okay, I'm gonna sign off and have a good day, good evening, and good night, depending on where you're watching this from. And if you're catching the replay, please comment below at the video or just get a hold of us and ask us questions. We're here for you. And we hope you're enjoying the PDFs and that you have a wonderful time until Enderi. We'll take care.
Now, did you want to speak afterwards or just do emails?